Vayichan sham Yisrael enged ha'har kulanu ke'echad.
Joining us from London, Rabbi Ilan Halberstadt. He's the Rav of Machzike Hadath in London. He's a Talmud of Agarin Ramosha Shapiro Zecher Tzadik Levracha, who I was quite close to. He's also a Rebbe in Menorah, and his Rebbitzin, Ruthie Halberstadt, born in South Africa. Her father is the famed Rabbi Akiva Tatz, who I also know. I saw him as recently. The last time I saw him was when we were together with Ramosha Shapiro Zecher Levracha. I believe it was in Prague. I spent a few days with your father there. She's an inspirational speaker, has taught in high schools in England and seminaries. It's an honor to have you both. So how would you define Shalom Aleichem? So how would you, let's hear an English point of view, how would you define what is chinuch? There's no word for it really in English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, chinuch, as we know, is to get someone started off. Aaron HaKohen does chanukas and mizbeach, so he lights the menorah, and we know that Chazal tell us, Ad she'oile hashal heves me'eleha, that you got to stand there, Aaron had to stand there until the flame was lit itself. So we know what really chinuch is to inspire and to guide a child, a teenager, and to make sure to stand on his own 2 feet and to be able to walk the path that he needs to walk. As we know,
what I learned that was very inspirational and transformational for me in my chinuch was that chinuch means creating the environment in which a child can make the best decisions that they need to make. So you're not responsible as a parent for your child's decisions. You're responsible for creating the environment and setting the stones, laying the foundations in which they can then make their choices. The choices they actually make and where they go with what you've created, that's not the parent's role. Parent's role is to lay the foundations, to build the blocks.
Okay, so I'm hearing a nuanced response, but basically it's about setting up a child so that he is then become self-sufficient in a way, that he can stand on his own. Sort of like the Gemara says, the Gemara has a definition not dissimilar. The Gemara says, Koten v'saimel chal shulchan atzmai ikri gadol, gadol v'saimel chal shulchan aviv ikri koten. So chinuch is that a person should be able to stand on their own legs. And let me share with you, I once heard over from one of the big tzaddikim, my father used to say over, he says, V'dibarta bam, everything's lashon rabim. V'shiftecha b'veisecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech. Shantam levanecha. He says, when do you know that you taught your children well? Is when they go home alone. V'veisecha, now it's lashon yachid, that they stand on their own. Just a raya lama to what you're saying. Let me ask you, do you think that during this time of COVID, I don't know what it's like in England, but here in the United States, people are living in isolation. There is no school. Children are at home repeatedly. It creates a new environment that parents have never had, an unprecedented environment. And as two famed mechanchim, I'm sure you're hearing from parents about some of the challenges, and you're supplying some of the solutions. Can you maybe share with us some of the challenges of being mechanech over maybe a half a year extended period for parents? What are those challenges and maybe some of the solutions you would suggest?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Can I open the window?
Yeah, sure.
I just need to open a window.
So I would say, I mean, I'm sure it's very similar, everyone's at home. And I think the most difficult thing is if it was just a week, maybe 2, everybody would be doing fine. It's like a short-term thing. People could focus and they could get it right. But now that you find that, there's another week, and it's probably longer, and a month, and who knows when. So you kind of lose the adrenaline a little bit, and it's harder to stay focused on the task at hand. So it is difficult because it's long. It could be long term, and if you think about it long term, it's perhaps scary for the parents, probably for the kids as well, but definitely for the parents. So I think in this regard, the number one thing that I've found, at least anyway, is that it's crucial to not get swallowed up on how long and when and the future. You just got to focus on the here and now. I mean, counting Sfiras HaOmer, we've just been through this whole period of counting, and going through the counting exactly teaches us this. You've got to have a long goal, but you can't keep focusing on that aim all the time. You've got to live day by day. My mashal I say for this is, the guy plants a seed in the ground, so you want to see results. But if every day you keep checking the seed and pulling it out of the ground to see whether it's taken root and it's going to start growing, it's never going to grow. You've got to take each day by day, and that's slowly but surely how we build. We count every day of the Omer, and then a week, and then the weeks build up. But it shouldn't be that we're obsessing with, when's it going to end and what's going to be. I think each day is something that we need to focus on. And I think another important thing is we cannot expect to be the perfect parents, the perfect mechanchim. Everybody's got great ideas of they're gonna learn in the morning, and then they're gonna learn in the afternoon. They're gonna do their kodesh, their chol, this, that, everything. It's all very nice on paper, but the main thing is you've got to have an environment where the kids are happy and they're doing something. Anything that they do, you heap praise on them. If you're not coping so well in this situation, kal v'chomer, it's not so easy for the kids, who've got a lot more energy usually than the parents. So each day as it comes, not to expect too much as parents, and whatever they do, you heap praise on that kid, that child, that teenager, whatever they're managing to achieve in the time that we've got.
So let me just read Rebbitzin before. I just want to say, because I think it's so important what your husband said. You're saying that it's a time for over-tolerance, forgiveness, accommodation, and not to be medagdik, kichut asayra, certainly now. It's a time for chesed. In other words, by the great meal of Pesach, which is all about chinuch, it's the first one, the Vigadat Olabincha, it ends with nirtza. Nirtza means whatever you did is fine. Do the best you can. Okay. Yeah. Rebbitzin, what would you say?
I would say that what we always preach is, and what every parent knows, is that what we do speaks much louder than what we say. Who we are is the greatest message of chinuch to our children. So maintaining an equilibrium, maintaining our connection to Hashem, the children should see us daven, the children should see us say brachas, the children should see us being machzike ourselves, is the greatest chinuch. Now, if that means for a mother, she needs 5 hours a day to herself, that's not possible now. But the example of doing the best we can with the tools we have is a very great lesson in life that perhaps is greater than all the lessons in school would have given them in these 4 months. So just saying, well, now I'm in a challenging situation, and they're watching us so carefully. Kids don't miss anything. So are they watching me rise to the occasion and express all the things that my husband just mentioned?
It says by Yaakov Avinu, when he benches his sons, he says, Shema yesh belibchem daifi. It says he forgot the case. He says, is there something wrong here? So they said, Kishem she'ein belibchem ela echad, kach ein belibeinu ela echad. So the first would say, why did he say just like you, so us? And they were saying exactly what the Rebbitzin is saying. You modeled for us echad, and so we believe echad too.
Right. That's
okay. Beautiful. That's what you're saying. How would you say dealing with an introverted child versus an extroverted child? I mean, their challenges are totally different. How would you deal with them during this time? What are the different challenges, and how would you as mechanchim say, this is how you deal with this one, this is how you deal with this one?
Let's see.
That's a great question, because the extrovert, he's going to be a lot louder than the introvert, and that's always the challenge when you have different kids. Some are much louder, and it's much easier to the quiet guy to push him in the corner and give your focus, because usually they take up more energy and focus, the louder kids. But the louder kid, the extrovert, has to also know, that everybody in this family has a place, and that there is a time now for the other kid, and it is important that he knows, this extrovert has to know, there's your time, and then there's the time for the other one. And it's true, what the introvert needs maybe is quiet time with his mother, sitting on his bed at night, which probably, by the way, the extrovert also definitely needs as well. It's not a question of personality. But the louder kid, he has to also know that, yes, he's going to look like he gets all the attention, but the quieter kid also can't be ignored. You have to give him time as well. And it is true, balancing the different kids in every family, and every family has kids who are for sure opposite. The oldest is not the same as the youngest, not the same as the middle, not the same as the third, whatever number it is. And that is always the greatest challenge of any parent, because every kid is different. And what is good for one is bad for the other. One guy wants the music loud, he wants to dance around the house. The other guy's got a headache, he doesn't want it. So, it is always difficult. You have to be, you have to use your common sense and your wisdom as a parent that Hashem has endowed us, hopefully.
So Rebbitzin, let me ask you a question, and I don't know if you have this, but let's say you have teenagers. The New York community in particular has had thousands of deaths, right? Far more than the secular population. And there's been an Eretz Yisrael, if you read on the blogs, people asking, like, why has it hit us on, in such an uncalibrated, so much greater than the, and children ask those questions. How would you respond?
I heard from a Zimmerman, Rabbi Zimmerman, who's now the Rav in England. He said a very good mashal. He gave a true story. He said when Rav, do you remember which Rav it was? That went to the son of Chavetz Chaim. What was his name?
Okay.
Do you know the name?
His son-in-law is Rav Mendel Zaks. I don't remember his.
No, Rav Leib, of the son of Chavetz Chaim, went to Varsha, went to Warsaw. And when he arrived in Warsaw, they said to him, wow, the son of Chavetz Chaim, a whole lot of people came out to greet him, and they said, tell us some maisim, tell us some moifsim. Tell us some moifsim from your father. Tell us some amazing miracles that your father's worked. And he said, there are two types of tzaddikim in the world. He said, there's the tzaddik that you're probably more used to. It was a Hasidish, it was a very Hasidic town. They had rebbes, rebbes, rebbeim, and big bali moifsim. And he said to them, there's the rebbe. He says that the tzaddik where tzaddik goizer, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim. Where the tzaddik says, the tzaddik decrees, and Hashem meets the bill. Hashem does. The tzaddik says, and Hashem does. He says, then there's another tzaddik, a tzaddik where Hashem goizer and tzaddik mekayim. He said, my father's that type of tzaddik. He says, my father's a tzaddik where Kadosh Baruch Hu's goizer and my father's mekayim. He said, I don't have stories of moifsim for you. So Rabbi Zimmerman said to him, he said, that's when someone was asking him, what does it mean and what's this time? He said, there's different type of people. Maybe there are people who'll be able to tell you, Torah codes and stuff like that, and tell you what it means and what it means to us and why. My father always taught me, he's always said to us, he said, we don't have Ruach HaKodesh today. When Ruach HaKodesh ended, we can't know what Hashem exactly wants. As Rav Simcha Wasserman said to my father at the Levaya of Rav Moshe Feinstein, it was very shortly after the Ptira of Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. And someone asked Rav Simcha, why? What is Hashem trying to tell us? It was 10 days apart. And Rav Simcha said, my father was in the car, and also my uncle was also a doctor. And he turned to them and he said, when the doctor doesn't know what's wrong, he prescribes a broad spectrum antibiotic. In this case, we can know Torah. General. So what I was saying from Rav Zimmerman is that we don't know. First of all, we're definitely not tzaddik HaKadosh Baruch Hu mekayim. We're not tzaddik gozer Hashem mekayim. And in that story, so we can't know exactly why what's happening is happening, but we can know what it's drawing out of us in any different circumstance. In a different situation, you can say what the difficulty is drawing out of us. Is your rope of emunah, your connection to Hashem, shaking violently? Then your job is to hold on tight. Which areas of your life are being challenged? You can definitely derive that that's what Hashem wants you to work on at that individual time. You can't ask questions beyond that. We have no nevuah today.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear, because I've heard some Rabbanim say it's because of the gay march in Yerushalayim. One said it's because of the fancy chasanis. Somebody in Lakewood said it's because of long shaitlach. It's like, they say in the United States, whatever's wrong with you, if you go into Midas, you're going to walk out with a muffler. So it's like people have their pre-described complaints against the society. And when the Rebbeinu Shalom does something, that's the one, you know. But I agree. It's a beautiful word for Ma'aseh Mechafetz Chaim. Let me continue this discourse. How do we, you know, people's parnasa were taken away. Many people here in the United States, unemployment is the highest level it's been since the Depression, right? And it could continue to get worse. That's for shalom. But until there's a vaccine, you know, until people feel safe. Like I was asked recently at an interview, they said, when will this end? I said, I know the exact date that it'll end. I said, nobody's going to a restaurant if they pick up the fork, they're going to die. They're not going to a hotel if they put their head on the pillow, they're going to die. They're not going to. So I said, when people feel safe, it'll end, which is when it could be months, it could be a vaccine. So people are losing their parnasa. People are, you know, have their kids at home for months. People are dying. My next door neighbor died. My brothers-in-law both were sitting shiva, two different sides. How do you teach emunah to children during such a trying time? Like, how do we use this as an opportunity to teach, you know, what you call the rope of emunah? Give us some exact steps. This is what you should do.
I think firstly, yes, it's true, and it's a very difficult time. Everybody's been affected, everybody's suffering, and everybody's challenged. But this is part of the greatest chinuch we can give anybody, ourselves included, is that life is about challenges, and we need to strengthen ourselves, not fall apart when life gets difficult, because that is what these challenges are supposed to bring out of us. I think it's also very crucial to focus on also amazing and powerful things that have come out of this. Number one, the amounts of chesed that have been shown. Number two, the achdus that is typical of Klal Yisrael on these times, at these times. And I think perhaps most importantly is the amount of people that have also got better, that we just assume, yeah, because they got better because they got better. But there's a tremendous kayach hatfilah and an outpouring of hearts from Klal Yisrael, which is just unbelievable. The kayach hatfilah is something real. I mean, if that's something that we've learned during this whole virus, then you know, I can't say, because it's not for me to say that it's kedai, because obviously we don't want anything to ever push us to this state. But the power of tefillah, of what the Jewish people are capable of, and the achdus, the thousands and thousands of tehillim and davening that have actually made a real difference, is teaching us emunah in the flesh. And yes, it's true there are difficulties, but that's part of the challenges of life and becoming a better and deeper person. And I think the part of this is also being locked up in, you know, everyone in their own house, is another very important lesson of emunah, that it's not about how other people see you daven, or, you know, what you look like to the public. This is so crucial. It's about your private relationship with Hashem. And that is something that is the most important thing that we could possibly learn, because Hashem wants a private inner relationship. So we can do what we can do. And it's true, it's very tough and very hard. But that is the process of becoming a better person, a bigger person, is to cry for Klal Yisrael, celebrate those people that have become healthy, call them up and rejoice, and just feel part of the Jewish people and the incredible power of the Kayach HaTfilah that we've actually seen has done incredible things.
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
Can I be really real for a minute? Because we can all know what's the right thing to say, but really in our marriage, my husband's the mamin. I'm the one that asks the questions. I struggle. And my husband, who's been my rock of emunah, has taught me that we don't know why, and we don't know why things happen. And when I gravitate to the pain, and I really feel like that rope I'm going to lose it, then he tells me that we don't know why, but we know with 100% clarity that one day we will know why. My brain is so tiny. My conception of reality and my grasp of why things happen, and that has to fit in with my program or my plan, is all ego, and that precludes HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we never know. We never know why anything. But what emunah means is to know that we will know. To know that there's a bigger picture, to know that there's a great plan, and to know that it's absolutely on the deepest level for our benefit. How does that look when tears are streaming down our face and people that are close to us are dying and dying young, when we're threatened, when we can't go learn Torah, when we can't daven with minyanim? I don't know, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's not your plan, it's not what you think, it's not what you deliver, it's the challenge through which you deliver. It's meeting nobility, meeting challenges with nobility. And what's nobility? Holding on to that tenacity, like holding on with tenacity to that tenet of our faith that says, yesh din, yesh dayan, one day I'll know. And acting with the ne'emanos that Rav Moshe Shapiro always taught us. And when it doesn't mean that you know now why things are happening, it's can you be loyal to that truth? Can I say, based on knowing that one day I'll understand, and that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in this for real and forever and for our good. Somehow something good's going to happen from this. I don't know what it is. It's I feel like visually I'm very feely, but visually I feel like the vessel is still expanding. The light hasn't come in yet. And that vessel that's expanding is very painful. Contractions are not fun, but it's going to birth something.
Let me go to a more mundane topic. Couples who see each other for 15 minutes a day usually are suddenly together for 12 hours a day, or 10 hours a day, or 5 hours a day, or 2 hours a day. And they're sorting, all kinds of shalom bias, harmony issues have to be readdressed. So if you had to give a chassan and a kalashmuz to 30, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds, as opposed to, 20-year-olds, what would you say?
Go on. My husband is king in this area too.
I was thinking, 15 minutes would be great if we could get 15 minutes nowadays. Hello, bye. It's obviously a very personal question for each couple. You have to know. But I think that the marriage situation is exactly parallel to the strength of the individual as well. That you can either get nervous and, so to speak, work against each other, chas v'shalom, or realize that you guys are in this together, and your wife, husband is your best friend, you're your closest people, and together you strengthen each other. And in fact, this is a time to better the relationship and to make it more meaningful and deeper. And, to see each other is a gift, really, that you get to see them all day. And so, I don't know, maybe I'm just biased, but, we have to just appreciate these days, especially the family time, okay, everybody's there, but you have a husband, you have a wife, you have a family, or even those that are living together on their own, which is very difficult, older couples. That is hard. Yeah, it's true. But nonetheless, to build together and realize that this is your unit, your family and your husband, wife, they're your closest, nearest and dearest, and you better make sure that you just can invest as much as possible.
Okay. I would say, based on this little experience that we've had, is that people think that compatibility means sameness. And the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a man to marry a woman where there's nothing same is to teach us to flex that muscle of compassion, kindness, forgiveness, and tolerance, of saying this is what it's bringing out in me is not necessarily what it's bringing out in him. This is what I'm finding challenging, even though we're so connected because we're committed to each other and we're living in the same Daled Amos, for the last 20 years. The different challenges, every challenge will bring out different aspects of a person, and we're still individuals. And the acceptance and the tolerance of different people's ways of dealing with things is critical to maintaining a good relationship.
I'm supposed to interview, but I was menachem mavel by a young man who was close to us, and he said to me, when we got married, we said, we'll spend time after we have our degrees. And then he said, when we had his wife had died of breast cancer, a young wife. And then he said, when we have our degrees, he said, we'll spend time after my career is like I have parental, then we'll have time. He said, then we said, then when I was a little bit, then when we have a house. And when I bought the house, but when the kids are little, and then she died. So it's like, it's unusual that I think that there's something beautiful. It's like, we actually could spend time with each other now, with our children too. When they're little, we'll spend time with them when our job is established, when our career. And when our career is established, when they're a little bit old, I'll schmooze with them. And by the bar mitzvah, that's when, but then a crowd came. And suddenly they're in Israel or they're in school and you wonder, I never spend time with them.
Yeah.
That's how, let me ask you another question. What happens in America? This is, I don't know how big it is. And you have a child who just doesn't take social distancing seriously. And he comes home and he could put the whole family at risk. And especially if the parents are in their 50s or 60s. But even now we're finding 20% of the millennials will get the disease, end up in the hospital, according to the CDC. How do you deal with that independent child who just doesn't have ears and is the maverick and doesn't listen? How would you be mechanech him at this time when he could be putting your life at that risk?
No, you go first.
That's a very good question. I tell you what, they're good questions, that's for sure. Sometimes a kid has to know, and you got to speak to these kids. It depends on the kid, depends on the age. But every kid, however wild and however difficult he is, if you get him in the right time and the right place, and you sit him down and have a proper talk to the kid, they get it. They usually get it. You can't get them when they want to rush out of the house. You can't have a serious talk with them then and there. But if you find the right time, which you've got to have a little bit of wisdom as to when that will be the right time, maybe it could be late at night, but just find that time. Sometimes you really need to explain to kids that just don't get it, that they need to try and think about it, and that they can get it. They can. And when we think they don't get it, we just don't realize that usually there's something else bothering them. In other words, why don't you make sure that you have empathy with them? Understand that these kids are climbing the walls for a reason. They just can't stand being locked indoors. They just need to get out. If you show that you understand that and try and work on a solution with them, say, listen, I really get it. I get that you just cannot stay home. You need to get out. So, get on your bike and ride around the park and just try and let out your energy. Let's try and work on something together and try and show that you're there with them. Understand them. Don't ever, as we know this, you can't tell kids what to do. You have to be able to understand where they're coming from and that empathize genuinely that these guys, they are having a hard time being locked up in a house, not speaking to their friends, not being around people that they are familiar with. They much prefer their friends than their immediate family, usually. And you have to empathize with that and then try and, with all that, say, how can we work on a solution together that you can still let out your energy, have a good time, and at the same time realize that this is a serious situation and you understand that, you can get that, and let's try and work this out together.
You're saying you have to sell it, and kol da'olam gvar is not going to work. That's what you're suggesting.
100%. With these types of kids, the 100% rule of those kids is they have to feel that they came up with a solution. They came up with it. Okay, now it's good because my parents didn't tell me what to do. They came up with it, so they're the man da'oma. They're the one that decided, and then they feel that they've got something to say and they listen to.
Rebbitzin, you want to close for some closing thoughts?
I grew up in a house that the motto, I would say, one of the many brilliant mottos of my parents in their chinuch was, I don't know if they would say, these weren't words that they said often, but the mahalach of chinuch in my home was kind but firm. And I don't think parents should be scared of making hard and fast rules. Obviously, you have to know that a kid can keep to that rule before you make the rule. But if the parent is prepared to go the extra mile in these unprecedented circumstances of going on going for a bike ride with his kid, or why is that kid running out all the time? If we say, how can I make it up to you? How can I reward you? We're rewarding for schoolwork at the moment. We're rewarding for creating incentives, making a game out of it. All things that are a nuisance for the parents who want to just get on with doing what they need to do. But if this is important enough to teach, then you're very kind, but at the same time very firm. You need to be home by this and this time. You can't go and see so and so. Parents are very scared to put their foot down and make hard and fast rules. We say, we're not here against you. We're making very hard and fast rules, but this is how we're going to come towards you. This is where the leeway is.
It's been an honor to have the two brilliant mechanchim from London. Thank you so much.
Shkayachti. Thank you very, very much.
Slacha with all your
Everyone
work.
should be
Regards
gesund,
to your
healthy,
father.
and well.
Regards to your father, your famed
Yeah.
brilliant father. Thank you, Kulta.
Kol tov.
כאיש אחד אוי אוי בלב אחד Vayichan sham Yisrael neged